are already familiar with Leigh Ingram? Just a show of hands. Awesome. Me too. Ingram Institute's founder and director, Leigh Ingram, is a functional bodywork practitioner with over 35 years of experience in teaching and private practice. After decades of training around the world, she has brought together multiple modalities into one comprehensive paradigm-shifting program that takes students through every system of the body in just over 2 years. Her knowledge of anatomy and physiology is deepened by her holistic understanding of the body's organizing principles. Please welcome to the stage, Leigh Ingram.
Thank you, Andrea, thank you. So I'm gonna, boy, that's loud, isn't it? Wow, okay. Like I can hear me. Is it okay? Okay. Okay. Thank you. When Andrea asked me to speak, I said, what do you want me to talk about? Because at the last holistic event, I talked about tailbone falls. And it was interesting because I was the last speaker at like 3:30 in the afternoon. Nobody was there, like 6 people were there, and I was talking about tailbone falls, and it was really interesting because every one of the 6 people had had a tailbone fall, so it was like up their alley. Well, when Andrea's, I said, what would you like me to talk about? And she asked me to talk about trauma, which I thought was really interesting that she sort of requested that. Because, trauma is not something that you normally think about somebody working with when they're doing body stuff, right? You don't have a tendency to think about trauma. But here's the deal, guys, is that every single person has some trauma. When everybody's got trauma, the amount of trauma you have is the precursor or really creates whether or not you have issues. So I'm going to talk about trauma, and you're going to see things in yourself, your friends, your spouses, your children, that all are a product of trauma. So, first of all, I want to do not a disclaimer, but sometimes when I tell what the symptoms are of trauma, people have reactions in themselves because you start to actually see yourself. So I do want you to know that you could feel something. You could feel some intensity, you could have a reaction, you could get mad, you could get sad, whatever, but I am telling you that everybody's got trauma, and you just may have a reaction. Oops, sorry, I forgot my mic. So you may have a reaction, okay? So why is it that a bodywork person is talking about trauma, and why is it that in my training that I do, which is a little over 2 years, we take a morning and I give a big lecture, a much bigger one than I'm doing here this morning, on trauma. Now, why would I do that? It's like, aren't you just teaching techniques to help somebody with pain? Isn't that what you're doing? But actually, the truth is it's so important to know and understand trauma. By the time I finish in this 45 minutes, you're going to understand a lot more why, okay? So there's 2 kinds, we're going to generalize. So there's 2 kinds of trauma. I don't know, we have a lot of people in here, and I don't know that everybody can see, but there is big T trauma and little t trauma, okay? Little t trauma is emotional trauma. My mother liked my sister more than me kind of trauma, that kind of thing. And my sister just got here, so just letting her know that, so that's little t trauma. Little t trauma has emotions. Little t trauma has memory. So I remember the trauma that I had in little t trauma. Big T trauma is anything that puts shock into my body. Like my body gets a shock in it. So big T trauma are things like a car accident, a surgery, having anesthesia. Having anesthesia is a shock for your body, okay? Like getting accosted, somebody jumping you or something. That's big T trauma. Big T trauma is abuse. That can be big T trauma. But if I have long-term emotional abuse, that turns into So we all know PTSD. So we know it mostly from thinking about soldiers and people who have been in those kind of scenarios. But we all have some range of PTSD in us because all PTSD is big T trauma. It's just how bad yours were or how many you've had. If I hit my head, that's big T trauma. If I fall on my tailbone, strangely enough, that's big T trauma. That puts a shock right through your body and through your nervous system. So that's big T trauma. So how many big T traumas I have is going to indicate like how big my symptoms are. Okay? Like how big is my symptomology? Alrighty? So one of the other things that happens is when the shock goes into my body, when I have shock that goes in my body, one of the deals is that it doesn't hold the memory. So, if I work on somebody and they begin to actually access or go into their trauma, then what happens is that they're like, but I don't, it doesn't have emotion attached to it, and it doesn't have memory. It has body sensation to it. It has body sensory to it. So, of course, that's another reason why here I'm a body worker talking about trauma. You'll see more in just a second. So, all of these things begin to add up. Also, one of the biggest things that creates trauma is birth. Your birth. Yes, you're giving birth, though I never have. I never have, but many of you probably have. That is a very tough and big thing, but the actual birth that each and every, you wouldn't be sitting here if you didn't have one. Everybody's got one. You got to get out somehow. You do. You got to get out somehow. And so every birth has trauma to it, right? The difference can be, let me say that the difference can be is how do your parents deal with you afterwards? And especially when there's a lot of trauma. Let me tell you something, that colic is the medical term for a baby that has trauma. That's what that is. Colic is not a thing. Colic is actually a baby that has had trauma, and therefore the nervous system is going, and it can't settle. So it's upset, it cries, it has difficulty sleeping. You're going to see that these are all sorts of, I'm going to be writing down the list of what the symptoms are when you have trauma. Okay? Everybody good so far? We're all okay? Okay. All right. Don't want to lose anybody, at this sort of stage. Anyway, trauma is big. It's really big. And one of the deals that happens is the more trauma I have, the more guarded I am. And that is one of the main reasons why I'm standing here talking to you. And I talk and give this lecture, a really big one, to my students, because you cannot make changes in somebody's body when the body is guarded. So if I have somebody who comes in who mentally thinks, I really, really want to, oh yes, I know, isn't that right? I want to feel better. So, you have, everybody always wants to feel better, but can your system, it's not even a mental exercise, can your system let it in to make a change? That is the question. So it's one of the first assessments that I'm making sort of unspoken when I have a new client come into me, and then I'm teaching this to my students is, can your system receive the work to help you change? And it doesn't matter whether the work is my work, which is very different, or chiropractic, or physical therapy, or massage therapy. That part does not, or you're going and you're going to lay in a Zen pool, that part doesn't make a difference. What is can my system let it in? Can the system actually let in the work that I need that needs to help change me? And the more trauma I have, the less that's true, right? Because when I have, over the years, because I've been doing body work since 1987, when I have somebody come in and they go, yeah, deeper, that's a big indicator that they have trauma. When they want you to go deeper, 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 that's an indicator of trauma. So I'm going to explain a little bit why, okay? I want to do this, okay? So, I want you to know that in our body, we have responses. Okay, so let me shift around what I was thinking of. Let me tell you what the symptoms look like when you have trauma. And you'll just get to see if you have one or 7, like I do, okay? You'll just get to see this. All right, so what are the symptoms? Here we go. So some of the symptoms, so there's physical symptoms, okay? And then there's sort of the psycho-emotional symptoms. And I'll put a big, oh, look at that, okay. I'll put a Y here so you can see. It's either P or P, okay? So, see if you recognize some of the things in here. So it disrupts your sleep. There is an inability to fall asleep, okay? So how many sleep studies has really come about in the last 20 years, huh? How many of these people are going in for sleep studies because they cannot sleep, right? So one of the biggest things that happens with trauma is you cannot still your nervous system to go to sleep. So for me, I'm like, wow, okay? The other thing it does is it reduces your digestion. This is on the physical side, right? So it reduces my digestion. So how much constipation and stuff like that is going on out there? Or dysregulation, or colitis, or whatever it is, is that there's a tremendous amount of this going on out there with people with dysregulation of their digestive system. Hello, trauma shuts it down. Because in my trauma, I have fight or flights, don't I? Fight or flights turn on. Think about this. If I'm fighting or I'm fleeing, fighting or fleeing, what's the first? Do you think I need to stop to poop? God, no. I need to go, right? I need to go. I don't need to be pooping. So that's going to turn off, right? So that turns off. So constipation, and especially when I ask my clients, I take a good history. When I don't take a history that lets you fill it out. I fill it out because I want to know. Usually you're like, oh, I'm okay. But I want to know, and when people tell me that they've been constipated or their children that I work on, this has been going on forever, that immediately goes out of, if they tell me it's been going on for 2 weeks, different story. But if they tell me that it's been going on all their life or forever, then I'm immediately, I got a little trauma ding going on right there, right? So the other thing that happens is high blood pressure. Don't I, when I'm fighting or running, don't I need to have more blood going in order to feed my muscles, in order to be ready, right? In order to be ready. I need that. So also in this means I have higher muscle tone, okay? So higher muscle tone. That means I'm more like this. So the little story that I said of somebody coming in to get a massage or whatever, body work, and you're going deeper, deeper, and you're trying to push on something that's resistant, this is why. Because you need this to do that. These are all inherent mechanisms that are going on in the body. They are inherently in you. This is part of your makeup that says, if I'm under threat, these things are going to start, this is going to start, and this is what's going to happen to me, right? The hard part is that after your initial threat is gone, we are still staying in this because we have so much trauma. Trust me when I say I'm going to think of more, okay? So I will think of more. But let's go over on the psychological side. But I'm also going to get a little drink here. Let's go on that side. When I get excited, I get really like, yes, believe me. I'm telling you. Okay. So So on the psychological side, what happens? So somewhere in here, I'm going to tell you that stress is elevating, okay? So stress is elevating. And on this psychological side, what have I got? I've got anxiety, okay? I've got worry, alrighty? I've got panic, alrighty? You see where I'm going with this? I have fear, okay? I have to think, because there's like a bigger list. And of course, I don't think I brought my list with me. I have it in the other room. Oh well, I'll remember that. So, but you get you get the kind of file folder that this is all in. This is in. You're negative, you know. Everything you think about comes through a negative scope. All right? So you can see the categories, and I want you to know that if I have 10 people who have high trauma, they're going to have stuff from the lists, the same lists. You know, I could be somebody who, you know, has a lot of fear, who has a lot of worry, that I worry a lot. I could have that. And at the same time, somebody else could have where their anxiety is off the chart. Actually, there's, thanks, Grace, there's depression. 2 S's in there. I can't spell. I can do this stuff really good. I can't spell. Okay? And let me just make sure. There we go. So I can be numb. I can have numbness over here. Numb where I don't feel. This is a good one, because I get this one. Irritability. Yeah, I know. Anyway, there's an L in there somewhere. You guys put the L in, okay? Hypervigilance, right? Where I'm hypervigilant. I'm a perfectionist, right? I notice everything. I'm on top of everything. Or I'm completely collapsed, and I always feel like if there's certain reactions to trauma, and if the trauma is big enough where you almost died, for some people, they go into, when they get stressed, they have to go to bed. Then there's some people, when they get stressed, they actually get more, you know, like the anxiety level goes more, and I have to do more and go more, and I can't rest and I can't sleep. So we've got all of that. You know what I mean? All of that is in here in this whole trauma profile. The reason why, you know, there's an action of learning about trauma now is partially because we are living in a traumatized world. So don't just think that the fact that your trauma and whatever your list of traumas, whether it was you hit your head in a swimming pool, or you fell 6 times on your tailbone, or you had lots of car accidents, or head injuries, it doesn't matter how you got them, but the action in the body is to create the same mechanism turning on. But we also have such a traumatized world out there that is adding to your own now. So we keep thinking that everything's only mine, it's only me, it's inside me, but it's not. It's pervasive. It is across the board pervasive. Everybody still okay? You're still with me? Okay? Has anybody heard themselves in my list yet? Yeah, we have a couple of yeses. Okay, gotcha. All right. So here's the funny thing, though. I'm about to put up a little board. We always think that it's fight or flights. Okay, so we always think that the trauma thing that happens turns on is fight or flights. But it's actually not. There's more categories to it. Okay? And the categories, I feel like I should be like one of those board people, you know, that kind of works this way. So the categories are here, and hopefully we can see them, it's fight, flight, fight, freeze, and fawn. I don't talk about fawn that much, you know, but let's look at the type of personality that you would have if you're operating, leaning into that one more than the other. So, in flight, how many people are workaholics? That would be me. Okay, there's only 4 of us. Wow. Great. And all the rest of you are not? Okay, all right. Overthinker. Hello. Yes, lots of overthinkers. You're always on it. You're really thinking about it. You know, and here's the funny thing I want to tell you is there's some benefit. So it's not that everything is 100% negative. I'm not saying it's a benefit to be an overworker, but you do get a beneficial part. Do you know what I'm saying? The same thing in an overthinker. Anxiety, panic, and OCD. This is very common when you're in your fight or flights. So this is the flight part. Difficulty sitting still. Have you been watching me walk across and running it just a little bit back and forth? Have you seen me? Anybody who's been in my training or had any kind of been, part of my classes or anything that I do is notice that I never sit and I'm always moving. Check. Okay. So then, perfectionist. Like, how many of those have we got here? Yes, there's perfectionist is also part of this fight or flights, Fight. Okay, here's the fight part. Let me get on the other side. The fight part is anger outbursts. I know you're not raising your hands, but I know there's some. Or being controlling. I love that girl back there. And being controlling, How many people are controlling and can't, and it doesn't take much to put them into anger. This is in the fight part. Some people are all the way into bullying in this. Narcissistic, where I think about myself. It's all about me. It's all about me. That's the narcissistic person. And explosive behavior, which I would think would be in anger stuff, but that explosive behavior. These are the fight or flights. Now, the interesting thing is, it is actually more common to be in freeze. And we don't hear about freeze very much, do we? You do never hear about freeze. But freeze is actually huge. I mean, I'm going to ask you, it's a little chilly right here. I'm going to ask you, have you ever been in a situation where your mind is saying, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to be here, but you do it anyway? That is freeze, guys. You don't think that's freeze. You don't think that's freeze. That you're in a situation, or you're talking with somebody, or something is going on, and you don't want to be there, or you feel this should be different. That is in freeze. So freeze also is difficulty making decisions. Okay? Freeze is that you're stuck. You feel like you're stuck and that you can't move forward or backward in your life. That's freeze. Dissociation. Someone who, when things get difficult, they then go and space out of it. They then space, right? That dissociation. Isolating yourself, where you don't go many places. You want to isolate. You don't want to be around people, because that's another thing in my list, is that in the list of symptoms is that you are like, go into a restaurant, the music is too much. You're overwhelmed easily. You can't filter out stimulus. So that is another reason for isolating. Have you ever gone out to eat or been somewhere where you're with somebody who you're talking to them and they keep looking off and everything, right? And looking over, and they can't focus just on you, right? We've probably all been with somebody like that. Well, that's a trauma response, that any kind of stimulus going on, they can't stay focused. They are caught, and they have to go with whatever's moving. They will actually follow the movement because they cannot stay focused, okay? So, and then another freeze is numb. I can't feel much. I don't have much responses to things. And I want you to know, guys, I know you're hearing yourself in here somewhere. You have to be, because there isn't anybody in this room that doesn't have trauma. I've been doing this 36 years. We all have it. It's just how successful are you in your life? You know what I'm saying? Is, does your trauma keep you from experiencing life? That's the question, okay? That is what it's about. Fawn, which, is obviously a big piece as well is people pleasing. Somebody who's people pleasing, their trauma comes out that way. You know, you're pleasing people at the expense of yourself. You're, hello. That's it. I said something right. Yay! Right? Okay. A lack of identity, meaning that I may change my opinion based on yours, or I waver in who it is that I am. I always have to follow the leader, but don't really know what I want. No boundaries. Ooh, you know what? I don't think that one should be in everyone, because boundaries are a big issue, and most people don't have good ones. You know what I mean? I'm in my mid-60s, and I'm just like, I finally got some this year. I finally got my boundary. Thank you. Yeah. Before, I was doing the thing where I'm thinking, where is it? In freeze, I'm thinking, but I'm not saying anything. That was definitely, and my sister can attest that is not me now. See, it's not me now. It used to be me, though. I had all this stuff going on in my mind. No, I don't want to be here. No, I this, or whatever. And now I'm even so bad that when I go into a restaurant, I'll go, could you please turn the music down so we can talk? Because God knows, in the grocery store, everywhere, it's just too much. I mean, and if I don't actually understand why it is that they're operating in that way. I don't understand why, okay? So here we go. In Vaughn, overwhelmed easily. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. So when you see yourself, you're like, yeah, that's me. Codependent. That codependency, which is obviously connected to not having any boundaries. You guys get this? So what happens is that the trauma is operating the show. It's driving the car. Even though you think it's yourself, it is a lot of what is driving the car. And so, especially, I don't know if you are one, or if you know somebody who does what I'm about to say, is that when you have trauma, everything that comes in, every experience that you have, the experience that you're having is processed through your trauma. So I saw this online somewhere, and this is somebody who's had a healthy family, healthy, not much trauma, and this is the trauma person. And so what's happening here is we don't see things as they are when we have trauma. We see things as we are. So if I've had healthy and been, like the baby that's had birth trauma. So 2 babies have birth trauma. This one goes home to a family that holds the baby all the time, that nurtures the baby all the time, that's breastfeeding the baby. This one goes home where the mom has to go back to work. She doesn't have time to really spend with the baby. You tell him. Mom's good over there, isn't she? These 2 different scenarios. So one is that the person who has the family that's spending time, that's feeding the baby, that's holding the baby, is the one that's going to end up more like this. And then you have the other side where the trauma is, the baby is always going to be processing through trauma. Same as us. So what do you do when you process through trauma? You either see everything as a negative, or you're judgmental, right? You go into judgment, or everything is like, that kind of thing. Those are responses to when trauma comes into you. Those are responses because your trauma is in all the parts of your brain. Did you know that?
Yeah.
When I love you. Exactly. Your trauma, when you have a shock, it goes into your upper brain, your midbrain, and your brainstem. And those are it's running the show. So my thinking is going to be more negative when I'm in trauma, when I have a lot of trauma, right? And this, okay, I'm going to say the B word, this bullshit that says, just let go. Have you heard that? How are you going to let go that's something that's in me at a cellular level? Now, I'm not even telling you all of this to tell you that there isn't anything, that there isn't any help. See, I didn't even ask for this one, but my assistant, who's not here today, decided she would do this one. This says, people raised on love see things differently than those raised on survival. So many of us have really been raised on survival, right? So is there a way through trauma? There is. And the great thing is I'd say I moved here in 1999. I moved down to Tulsa. And in 2000 or 2001, we have this amazing practitioner who brought somebody in. Trauma was like not heard of. And brought in a practitioner that actually taught a series of seminars on trauma. And I was lucky enough to be involved in that, which started to actually change my view and started to make me understand like how trauma actually is part of us and how pervasive it really is and how much more pervasive it's getting, even more bigger, more deeper as we're going along. Each decade it's getting like, I don't know, I remember being able to go outside my house when I was a kid and play, and my mother not having to think, oh boy, they're out in front of the house, this is dangerous, this is this, all of the stuff that's going on these days is just, very challenging and sad. So, but there are therapies now that actually work with trauma. But here's the deal, you guys. It's not one and done. I don't know what it is in our culture. Maybe it's the medical, just taking a pill and you're like, you don't have your symptoms. It is not one and done to actually work through your trauma or work through your pain. It is a series of working through it. And one of the deals, don't forget what I said in the beginning, that trauma is coming in as a shock. And what that means is my body could not process the shock. If it could have, I wouldn't hold it. Like if I fell down and scraped my knee, okay? My body can handle like sending all the little cells and repairing my knee and stuff. But if I fall and hit my head, get some kind of concussion, it's big enough that the body cannot resolve it. So one of the deals is when you're working with trauma, you actually have to do what they, like you have to let it come up in micro doses, like little bit at a time, so that your body can actually integrate it and get through it. So this idea, the same way, healing your gut, healing your nutritional stuff, all of that is a longer term thing than most people think. Getting through your pain, getting through your trauma, it is a process, guys, and if I can convince this 40 people to know that it's a process as opposed to I go once, I didn't get help, and now I'm gone. It's like, it's not like that. But we definitely have some trauma therapists here. I work with trauma personally, and the people that I'm going to do a plug for my school in just about a minute, is that the people that graduate from my school, we do cranial sacral therapy, which is a therapy that's working with the head, which is really interfacing with all of the systems in the body. So we come to trauma through cranial sacral therapy. There's also, Grace gave me this whole list, because Grace is wonderful. Grace works with us. She's at the school. She works with the school. She works with me and everything, and she's super. So there are different kinds of modalities here, but here's what's happened is people are getting clued in, and it's harder to get in with these therapists. So the therapists that are here, so we need to clamor for more people being trained in how to work with trauma. Because I will say this, when you do talk therapy, it is good. Talk therapy has benefits, but talk therapy is little t. Talk therapy is not big T. Talk therapy is awesome. Talk therapy is about your emotional body, your emotional system. It is not your trauma system. What's in you traumatically? Couldn't get that out. It's not from the trauma. That's your big T. Your little t is, I spent 20 years talking to them and I still have stuff. Well, that's because you need to work differently, okay? And working differently means I have to include the body in there. And those are what's called, your body is soma. So that's somatic therapists are the therapists that work with when the trauma comes up in the body and begins to work with that. So the different, you know what, I'll write these down, okay? Hang on a second. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. Can you guys see, as I do this, can you see why I have to talk about trauma in my practice? Because laying your hands on intentionally with someone is I'm laying my hands on all of your experiences. I couldn't, you know, by the time I moved down to Tulsa, I was already a bodywork person for what, 16 years or something like that, 15 years. So by the deal is, and I had no idea, you know, I was coming in there and no matter what I've done, I've been a good therapist, but I was in there doing stuff without the consciousness and the understanding of what was coming into me, you know, what was coming in and laying down on the table. Well, now I get it, you know, and I've educated myself more. And so now you can see why it's so important to know and understand trauma, because it comes up while you're on the table. Because it also means that somebody's so tight that you can't even work on them. That means that they are in trauma, and you have to switch to a therapeutic angle in order to help them with their trauma first. See, and the other thing I'm a big believer in, and I know it's going to shock the heck out of you, is communication. Right? Is that going to shock you or what? Is that I have to communicate to you, my client, that what I'm dealing with, because you want me to deal with your shoulder that hurts. Well, how can I deal with your shoulder when I can't even move your shoulder, right? It's so telling. Anyway, I'm writing something down, right? Okay. Because I can digress. Okay. So EMDR, which is a rapid eye movement. If you look up EMDR, it's a rapid eye movement therapy. There's something called emotion code. You guys are going to have to look it up and find the people and do all that stuff. There's somatic experiencing therapy. There's family constellation, which is also amazing. You know what? I will also say that I think we should have neurofeedback somewhat on this list.
Oh, yeah.
That's a D, feedback. Okay. We have ancestral clearing, which Andrea will talk all about later. So these are just some of them. And then from me, the only thing I do, I don't do these. What I do is cranial sacral therapy. That's what I do. And so there you have that. So everybody gets the fact. So it's cranial sacral therapy, and then we have these family constellation, somatic, emotion code, EMDR. There's also something called brain spotting. But I want you to know that every single one of these works with the nervous system and how it connects to the body. Every single one of these. Okay. Because you have to, you know what happens in trauma is one of the things that happens is that the trauma comes in the shock, but what it also starts to do is disconnect the parts of the brain. Meaning not like physiologically, but meaning that what happens is I don't have my upper executive function working when things are triggering me in my trauma. I lose executive, the thinking function to think well when I'm in my trauma. One of the things that all of this stuff does is begin to reassociate all of those parts of the brain as well as to help the trauma come out. All right? Everybody's with me? Okay. So before I tell you like 2 minutes about my school, I want you to tell me, does anybody have a question? Oh, I'm so good, aren't I? Awesome. Thank God.
I have a question.
You do.
In hypervigilance, are you also talking about exaggerated startle reflex?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The startle reflex is a big one, is a really big one in trauma. The startle reflex.
Yeah,
Because
sometimes people don't even know that they have it.
that they have it.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes. What happens is in your midbrain there is one part that's called the amygdala, and I'm sure some people have heard this. The amygdala in trauma gets changed, and one of the amygdala's job, it has several jobs, but one of the amygdala's job is actually to keep out stimulus. So what happens is when the amygdala changes, stimulus is allowed in. So you're getting a lot of stimulus. That's why, sound can be too much, movement can be too much, TV can be too loud, it can be too many images coming at once. Those things, don't like to go to parties anymore, don't like to be in crowds anymore. That is all like happening because of the trauma, and it's this change in the amygdala. The really cool thing is they've done studies, and the amygdala can actually get changed back by having the right therapy. The amygdala can change back by having the right therapy. So, great. Okay, one last thing is that I'm so sorry. Obviously, I move a lot of things around. So I have a school, and my school is Ingram Institute. You can find us we have a website. You can find us on ingraminstitute.com. I also have a Facebook page, but I haven't been posting on that too much. We actually have little videos. But I have a YouTube channel that has videos anywhere from 1.5 minutes to an hour, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, that I talk all about different parts of the body, how pain patterns, liver, that stuff. My training is a 2-year, 2-month training that meets 4 days every other month. It meets 4 days, 14 times. And I am teaching people from the ground up how to work with pain patterns, and where it's really coming from. Not like how can I help you mask it or maintain it, but how do you process through something. And cranial sacral is also a part of every single module that we have. It's a part of it. And we get to doing organs as well. I teach organs as the last third of the training, because 65 to 90, I'm saying this again, 65 to 90% of pain in your body, that's what I forgot, pain in your body is coming from an organ. If you didn't injure yourself, if you didn't get an injury, that much is coming from organs. So it has to be part of the training, in my mind. So anyway, it's a lovely training. I really love it. You'd see me doing the same thing. Here, I'm here, I'm doing this thing. Just teaching you every part of the body. And it's exciting. It's really exciting to learn how a body really, really works. So if you have any questions, we have a booth out there with myself, and one of my graduates is out there. We also have cards for the graduates if you want to get work done. We have a student clinic that meets. Grace runs the student clinic. It's every month or every other month. Grace can write down when the date of the next one is. Grace organizes that. So it's a great program, and it's amazing that you can actually find work in Tulsa that is work that is helping you process through your stuff. So, thank you so much. I appreciate you letting me talk.